Have you ever had that feeling like when things are kind of lining up for something big? That's what it feels like looking at Vietnam's financial scene right now. If you're the kind of person who wants the inside scoop, well, we're going deep today. We're talking Vietnam's securities market in 2025. Everyone's saying it could just explode.
Yeah, and not just little changes either. We're talking possible huge shifts in Vietnam's financial world. This deep dive will unpack the expected surge. Everyone thinks it will come with the market upgrade going from frontier to emerging, but we'll also look at the bigger picture, the economy as a whole. Some exciting opportunities there, I think. Plus, we'll see what the securities companies themselves are planning. Lots of them are after record profits this year.
Okay, so to get a grip on all this, we've rounded up some excellent sources. We've got Nipson Gintin Vietnam Teje to give us the ground level view, Tap Chi Kinte Te Chin for the deep analysis, the Coming Wave podcast for the macro picture, and then Cafe to see what the industry itself is thinking.
Right. As always, we want to put all that together and bring you the key points. Cut through the noise and really help you see what this all means for Vietnam's economy and what opportunities might be out there for those who are paying attention, right?
Right. Okay, so let's break this down. I guess the first thing is this whole market upgrade. It feels like a big deal. It's not just a name change, is it?
No, not at all. This is a top priority for the Vietnamese government. The Prime Minister himself is really pushing for this upgrade from FTSE Russell in 2025. It shows how serious they are about raising Vietnam's profile in global finance.
So what's the big deal with going from frontier to emerging? It's got to be more than just a label.
For sure. Getting that emerging market status, it can really unlock foreign investment. More international investors can look at Vietnam, and that means more money, a bigger, more active market. Plus, it sends a signal. It tells the world that Vietnam is a more mature, stable place to put your money.
So how close is Vietnam to actually getting there? This isn't a new idea, is it? We've been hearing about this for a while.
Yeah, true. But they've made real progress. In September 2024, FTSE Russell said Vietnam already met 7 of their 9 criteria for the upgrade. That's a good start.
Okay, so what are they missing? What do they still have to do?
Well, the two main things are the pre-funding rule for foreign investors and how they handle failed trades. For the pre-funding, they made a big move with Circular 68/2020 for TTBTC. That actually got rid of the rule that foreign investors had to have all the money up front before a trade. That was a big problem for a lot of international funds.
That sounds like a big win. But is it actually bringing in more investors? Are we seeing that money come in?
It's still early, you know. The law is there, but it takes time for investors to react, for the money to really start flowing. They need to see that the market is working well consistently. It's not just about checking boxes.
Makes sense. And what about the failed trades? Sounds pretty technical. Something to do with market systems.
Exactly. They're working on that with something called a central counterparty, or CCP. Basically, it's like a middleman for every trade. So instead of the two sides dealing directly, the CCP steps in. They guarantee the transaction. This way, there's less risk of one side not coming through with the money, which is what causes those failed trades. It brings Vietnam in line with global standards for a good, stable market.
Makes sense. So FTSE Russell sounds like a good bet. What about MSCI? They have their own rules too, right?
Yeah, MSCI does have their own set of criteria. Vietnam's working on those too. As of June 2024, they met 10 out of MSCI's 18 criteria. Some of the things they're working on include maybe letting foreigners own more of certain companies. They're also trying to make more information available in English. This makes it easier for global investors to understand what's going on.
Seems like they really want to get this done in 2025. Lots of pressure.
Yeah, definitely a sense of urgency. And 2025 is a big year. It's the 25th anniversary of Vietnam's stock market. It'd be a pretty amazing achievement.
More than just symbolic too, right? I remember seeing some pretty big numbers attached to this upgrade.
Oh, yeah, you're right. The World Bank thinks that if both FTSE Russell and MSCI upgrade Vietnam in 2025, they could get up to $25 billion in new foreign investment by 2030. That's a ton of money coming in, and it'll have a big impact.
Wow, that's huge. And it sounds like the people who are actually in the market, they're feeling pretty good about it too.
Absolutely. The CEO of ACBS, for example, he's very confident. He said there's a 99.99% chance that the FTSE Russell upgrade will happen in 2025. That kind of certainty from someone like him, that tells you something.
Right, so the upgrade is a big deal. But it's not happening in a vacuum.
Yeah.
How's the overall Vietnamese economy looking?
The overall situation looks pretty good. The government is aiming for 8 to 8.5% GDP growth in 2025. I've even heard there are some internal talks about trying to go even higher. That desire for strong growth is a big factor here.
And how are they planning to get there?
They're using a combination of things. First, what's called accommodative monetary policy. That's basically managing interest rates and how much money is circulating. And then expansionary fiscal policy, which is about government spending and taxes. On the money side, interest rates are low right now. Most people think they'll stay low. Some people even think banks will lower their deposit rates even more. The government seems okay with a little more inflation if it means keeping things moving.
So low interest rates to encourage borrowing and spending, even if things get a bit more expensive.
That's the idea. And then on the spending side, the government is spending more. A big example is their streamlining of government agencies. Plus, they're giving big payouts to people who retire early, which could put something like 138,000 trillion VND back into the economy.
Wow, that's a lot of money. So how does that help?
Think of it as giving everyone more spending power. The people who get this money are likely to buy more things, maybe invest some of it. That extra spending and investment boosts businesses and helps the whole economy grow.
Makes sense. What about exchange rates? They can be a bit volatile, can't they?
Well, the good news is that things are looking pretty stable right now. The DXY index, which tells us how strong the US dollar is, has gone down since the beginning of 2025. A weaker dollar usually gives other countries more flexibility with their own monetary policies, including Vietnam. It takes some pressure off their currencies.
Okay, that's good. And how has the Vietnamese stock market been doing?
It's been pretty strong, actually. While the US markets have been going down lately, the Vietnamese market has been doing well, even growing. This suggests that people in Vietnam are feeling confident. It's interesting to note that China's market is also doing well.
That's a good sign. I've also heard there's a lot of cash just sitting in people's bank accounts in Vietnam.
That's right. Some estimates say Vietnamese households have as much as 7 quadrillion VND in cash. With interest rates so low, people are going to want to find better returns, maybe in real estate or the stock market. That's a lot of potential investment money waiting to be used.
And what about foreign direct investment, or FDI? Is that still coming in strong?
The FDI outlook is still positive. There's a lot of uncertainty in global trade right now. Businesses are looking to diversify their supply chains and reduce their risk. Vietnam is becoming a popular choice for that.
So we've got this perfect storm brewing.
Huh.
Push for a market upgrade, a strong economy, and tons of money ready to be invested. The securities industry must be excited.
Absolutely. When you look at their business plans for 2025, it's clear they're expecting a great year. Lots of them are aiming for big growth and record profits. This ties in perfectly with what we're discussing today. Companies aiming for record-breaking trillions in profit.
Let's hear about some of these big plans. Which companies are expecting the most growth?
Well, the biggest one, SSI, they're aiming for 9,695 trillion VND in revenue, a 15% increase. Their pre-tax profit target is 4,252 trillion VND, which is a 20% jump. If they hit those numbers, it'll be a record profit for them.
Those are massive numbers. Who else is setting their sights high?
VPS, the market share leader, is also going big. They're targeting 8,500 trillion VND in revenue. That's a 31% increase. And their pre-tax profit target is 3,500 trillion VND, an 11% increase. If they hit these targets, it'll be their highest revenue and profit ever.
Okay, so the big guys are feeling good. What about some of the other major companies?
Saigon Hanoi Securities, or SHS, they want to hit almost 2,520 trillion VND in revenue, up 26%, and nearly 1,601 trillion VND in pre-tax profit, up 29%. That would be their best year in 4 years. They also think the VN index will be strong, trading between 1,394 and 1,420 points, with average daily trading values of 23,100 to 25,200 billion VND. And on top of that, they're planning a 10% cash dividend for their shareholders.
The cash dividend always signals confidence. What's VietCap or VCI expecting?
VCI is looking good too. They're targeting 4,325 trillion VND in revenue, up over 15%, and 1,420 trillion VND in pre-tax profit, a 30% jump. If they do it, it'll be a record year for revenue and their second highest profit ever. They're also thinking of a 5-10% dividend payout.
Sounds like everyone's expecting a really good year. Any other companies with big ambitions worth mentioning?
Yeah, ACBS, or ACB Securities, has one of the most ambitious plans. They want to hit a pre-tax profit of 1,350 trillion VND. That's a huge 60% increase. Their parent company, ACB Bank, is even putting more capital into ACBS, which shows how much they believe in their growth. Then there's MB Securities, or MBS. They're aiming for the first trillion VND profit ever. Their pre-tax profit goal is 1,300 trillion VND, up 40%. They're also projecting revenue of 3,370 trillion VND, an increase of 8%. They also have a positive outlook for the macroeconomy, with the VN index target of 1,400 to 420. They want to get a bigger share of the brokerage market and grow their active client base.
So even beyond the biggest players, there's a lot of optimism. Any smaller companies with big dreams?
Definitely. DNSE, though smaller, is forecasting really fast growth. They're targeting 507 trillion VND in revenue, which is a massive 85% increase. They also want to reach 262 trillion VND in after-tax profit, a 44% rise. They're so optimistic because they've finished developing their product ecosystem and they're expecting the KRX trading system to launch soon. And then there's Nutvit Securities, or VFS. They're aiming for 515 trillion VND in revenue, a 75% jump. They want their pre-tax profit to reach 173 trillion VND, an 11% increase.
So almost everyone's feeling bullish. Is anyone being a little more cautious?
There are a couple. Wrongvent Securities, or VDSC, is only forecasting modest increases. They're saying revenue will go up by about 6% and pre-tax profit by about 3.5%. They actually think their after-tax profit will stay flat. They say there might be some pressure from exchange rate fluctuations, and they think market liquidity will increase more in the second half of 2025 after the market upgrade.
Okay. What about FPT securities? They're usually a pretty steady performer.
FPTS is actually forecasting a small dip in revenue, down about below 0.6%. They think pre-tax profit will also drop by about 2.5%. They're looking at the global economic forecasts, which are similar to 2024, and they're worried about the potential impact of U.S. trade policies under President Trump. They also know the KRX system is launching, but they don't think there will be many new products or listings at first. That means competition on fees and margin lending rates will probably stay high.
So a few cautionary notes amidst all the excitement. Good reminder that not everyone sees things the same way. Speaking of things to watch out for, we've talked about a lot of positives. What are some of the challenges and risks that could spoil this party?
It's always important to be realistic. Even with all this optimism, there are still some things that could go wrong. The impact of U.S. trade policies under President Trump is one to watch. It might not be as bad as some people feared, and it's good that they're still talking about trade. The recent news about Starlink possibly coming to Vietnam is a good sign for their relationship.
So the trade war might not be as bad as we thought.
That's how it looks now, but things can change quickly. Another thing to keep in mind is that even though the laws are changing to make the market upgrade happen, it's still not guaranteed that all those foreign investors will come rushing in. It takes more than just changing the rules. You have to build trust. The pre-funding thing is a good example. They got rid of the rule, but will that actually bring in a flood of new investment? Only time will tell.
Right. And we can't forget about inflation. All this spending and low interest rates, that could make things more expensive.
That's the trade-off. The government seems willing to accept a little more inflation if it means the economy grows faster. But if prices go up too much, people might start spending less, and that could hurt investment in the long run.
Okay, we've covered a lot today. Any key takeaways for our listeners as we look at Vietnam in 2025?
I think the big picture is one of opportunity and optimism. Vietnam's securities market is set for a strong year, thanks to the government pushing for a market upgrade, good macroeconomic conditions, and ambitious plans from the securities companies themselves.
Sounds like we might just see that explosion we were talking about.
That's definitely the feeling. People are expecting more foreign investment, a more active market, and positive momentum across the financial sector. When you see the kind of revenue and profit targets these companies are setting, it's clear they're feeling very bullish.
This definitely seems like a time for some serious aha moments. So, as we wrap up, what's one big question our listeners should be thinking about?
That's a good question. Well, we've got this perfect storm brewing, right? The market upgrade, the good economy, and all this investment money waiting to be used. So my question is, what's the biggest surprise waiting for us in the second half of 2025? What opportunity are we not seeing, or what risk haven't we even thought about? Look beyond the obvious and think about what could happen as a result of all these changes.
That's a great point. Thanks for joining us today and sharing your insights. This has definitely given me a better understanding of what could be a huge year for Vietnam.
You're welcome. It's definitely an exciting time for Vietnam, and it'll be interesting to see how things play.